Well, hello, good people. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. This is Joe Boo's day job. I have been doing carpentry work since I was about 8 years old, working and putting on an addition for my parents' house some 51 years ago, and have worked and built many, many houses and done all kinds of projects, restoring old homes like this one that I'm in currently, which is a 205-year-old historic home that we're working on getting on the National Registry as we speak. And I am a member of a Facebook page, Our Old House, where people are posting pictures of their old house and sharing information and things on there. And I kind of got into a little bit of a discussion with the gentleman because a woman has an older house, framed house, and she's asking questions about how she should insulate the house. And because she doesn't want to have the transfer of the cold and things, and being here in this house where we have behind me here plaster brick walls that are 3 rows of bricks deep. The R value is not great on this, and of course we ended up keeping our original windows, which are single pane glass, with of course the weights. They're not that energy efficient, so we've gone through and we've weather sealed them to make them better, and we've gone through and we've done blown in insulation in our attic, which works fantastic here. Reason I'm doing this video was a person had said use spray, he said use spray insulation because it'll make the framing tighter, and it will take care of any gaps and things like that, that this is the best thing in the world. And here's the thing that I will say. I've learned so much about this house because when I first started looking at this house, the plaster was cracked and coming off the bricks and things, and I was talking to a drywall company about plastering the walls, and their whole thought was, oh, we'll just get some Easy Sand 20 and we'll just slap it on there and it's done. But see, things like that you can't do in an old house because the materials are different and they don't necessarily work with the same things that we have now. Putting drywall, for example, over plaster brick walls, this is constantly having a moisture exchange. So when you end up using drywall, which does not like moisture as opposed to this bricks, I could spray this whole thing down with water and it will get absorbed into it. It'll just disappear. And in fact, when you are doing plaster work, you've literally got to wet this thing down for days, and within minutes it's absorbed. It's got that exchange of moisture. Drywall is the exact opposite. It'll end up molding. So that's one of those things that you learn from working with an old house. And the problem for me with the spray insulation is it's great. It's easy. A guy comes in the whole suit, respirator and everything else, and they spray it all in one day, screed it clean, and they're done. And they slap up the drywall on it, and you're good. And there is no exchange because it literally seals it up. But for me, I'm not an expert on it. I'm not going to pretend that I am. But in my mind, I keep going back to remembering when FEMA had trailers back in after Katrina, that they found out about the chemical release from the spray-in insulation that was used in the trailers. And the fact that I have to see, when I see people having to wear a full two-box suit and oxygenated respirators, kind of puts up a red flag. Now, around us all day, we've got all kinds of stuff that leaches chemicals. Some of the flooring has that you have, or the particle board in your countertops has formaldehyde glue in it, which of course leaches chemicals. Your fire retardant pillowcases and mattresses and things leaches chemicals. And the person's thing was, and I was like, I personally wouldn't do it myself. I said, because things I'm learning about it is when you have sprayed in insulation, it makes it more difficult to get insurance. In fact, in England, they will not insure houses that have sprayed on insulation in the roofs. And the reason being is the structure, the framework, you can't see it. You can't expect it. It could be completely rotted underneath of it, and you won't know. As a contractor, when I go into a house and I need to run a plug that's got sprayed-in insulation, it's a mess. And what you find out about is what's toxic in it is the dust. So if you're now drilling and trying to, because you've remodeled the kitchen and you need to move the plumbing, you've got to put in some new plugs and things. You can't just get through it. You've got to channel that stuff out, or you're drilling into it and creating more of this dust that is toxic. Now, this is not for me. This is some of the stuff that I'm reading just to give you, at least a point blank view of it. Two things. Your indoor space, of course, you want to keep it airtight so that way it's easy to heat and cool. But being airtight means that there's not an exchange of the air, bringing in fresh air. One of the nice things about an old house is at least you have an air exchange. And with these the plaster actually will absorb a lot of the chemicals and things that are in there. But here's what we're getting an overview. Spray foam insulation can cause insurance issues for a number of reasons, okay? This is where you're going through and trying to get your house insured. They're going to look at this. Structural risk. Spray foam insulation can lead to structural issues like trapped moisture, which can cause decay and roof damage. And here's the thing, if you're doing an old house, having these old members that have been used to the climate, now the problem is now you've got this cold air that's on the outside of this thing that's going to freeze, and now you've got this insulation in here that's going to keep it sealed up. And you can create a moisture behind it that will rot out, and you'll never see it. Improper circulation. If not installed correctly, spray foam can reduce ventilation and air circulation, which can lead to condensation and dampness. Fire risk. Some view spray foam as a fire risk. Also, too, if there's a fire, it will make a toxic gas. Something else that you want to think about. Chemical risk. Spray foam can release harmful chemicals during and after installation, which can cause health issues like skin, eye, and lung irritation. And this is where I was kind of talking about like the FEMA trailers that were releasing all these chemicals where they literally said, do not stay in them. Environmental damage. Spray foam is made from petroleum-based chemicals and blowing agents that contain hydrofluorocarbons, which can emit greenhouse gases. Difficulty removing. Spray foam can be expensive and difficult to remove. Chemical composition. The chemical composition of spray foam make it difficult for standard insurance company to provide coverage. And lack of regulation. Spray foam is not widely regulated. Some insurance companies may refuse to insure homes with spray foam insulation, and some mortgage lenders may refuse to lend on homes with spray foam insulation. So that's where I'm just trying to put it out here that I'm not sure that's the best thing out here. If you're saying I can save maybe a couple of dollars on my heating and cooling bill, but now I'm incurring all these risks, or I've got a home that's uninsurable, or if I have to do other work on it, it's not necessarily the best thing that you want to do. And again, dealing with an old house, I'll give you a perfect example of how modern materials don't work with an old house. This house, like I pointed out, this is bricks behind here that was plastered up with the lime sand plaster. Very simple materials. The bricks were handmade. Literally, they dug the dirt out over there and hand fired those bricks right behind the house to make this. So the bricks are a softer brick, and they do expand and contract, and they do absorb moisture. If you take one of these bricks and put it in a pot of water, a bucket of water, you're going to see all that water just get absorbed into the brick. So when they had a gutter issue and the house wasn't being used, you didn't have the heating in the house like you would normally have, where the bricks and things are warm. Because they had a gutter issue where the gutters, the downspouts were gone, the water kept running down the bricks, they get absorbed into the bricks, and the mortar, they ended up the freezing and thawing and ended up breaking out and knocking out some of the bricks around the corners of the house on both sides of it. And when people looked at that, they said, oh, the house is not structurally sound, and that's where they wanted to condemn it. Even though it looked bad, because you've got a section where there's a whole bunch of bricks that are out. What they did, not knowing, is they went in with some mortar, and modern bricks, and they put it in there to fill it in, to make sure, okay, well, we took care of it, we fixed it. The problem is today's bricks are hard. They don't expand and contract the way the old ones do. Same thing with the mortar. So as the old bricks are expanding and contracting between the heat and the cold, the other ones weren't. And literally, the places where they fixed the bricks was rejected. It was literally knocked out. You saw it laying on the ground, still put together. It's almost like when you replace a kidney and you don't have the right blood type and the body rejects it. That's the same thing that's happened here. Now, I've since gone through and using reclaimed bricks and lime mortar and put it in there. And it's been 8 years later and looks fantastic. And so that's where you have to understand that, a house like this, you can't treat it like regular stuff. It's not the same. I've got molding and wood, antique hard pine that is attached directly to the bricks that have been here for 200 years and has never rotted out, never warped or twisted. If I try and do the same thing with wood that's from now, it's not going to last a couple of years before it rots out. So that's my thoughts here on using spray foam. I'm not trying to mess up the industry or anything like that. This is just my own personal opinion. What I say to do is do your own research before you do something like this. And don't necessarily just go and say, I'm going to go on Facebook and get my answers for something like that. Talk to an expert, and that's where you'll be better off. Have a great day.